My mom's family is from Sicily, and my dad's family is from Naples. Brooklyn is where my parents grew up. Do you want to grow up? I went to school with Kevin and John my whole life. A lot of singers lived in the area where we were. Our drill lasted 6 hours a day, and we took our time. John Petrucci is the lead guitarist for the band Dream Theater, as well as a sound engineer, director, and most importantly, a planner of modern music. He is a rock star, but not like most. Not a fuss. There were no incidents or news stories. In the world of music, Petrucci picked the path of discipline, unrestricted creativity, and silence. He stays quiet and exact, letting his guitar speak, in a time when guitarists often have to shout to be heard. There are riffs that wind around like mazes, solos that cast spells, and song structures that last for tens of minutes, but are still interesting like movies. Petrucci. It's not enough to just hear music. You have to feel it too. How did someone like him come to be? Being raised on Long Island with his sister's piano and bass, the boy first wanted to be a musician so she could stay up late with her friends. As an artist, they made choices that hurt a close friend of Mike Portnoy's. Bodybuilder-looking man who talks in soft, emotional tones. Let's look into John Petrucci's life, the man who decided to live a complicated life so that he could write melodies that make the world quiet. Beginnings. John Petrucci was born on July 12, 1967, in Kings Park, Long Island, New York. Kings Park is a quiet beach town, where waves and the music of pianos and clarinets could be heard coming in through every window. His family, who were Italian-American, had a simple life but loved the arts. Everyone's child was a live instrument in that house. Two of his sisters played the piano, one of his younger sisters played the clarinet, and his brother played upright bass. John didn't see music as something far away. It sounded like a child. The breath of quiet nights after dinner, when everyone in the family would fall asleep together. Because he was a child, John picked up the guitar for the first time when he was 8 years old, not because he really loved music. His sister was allowed to play the piano late at night. He thought, I can stay up late if I learn guitar. John couldn't stand getting up early for school, so that dream fell apart too fast. The guitar was put away in a room and seemed to have been forgotten. Not until he was 12 did his close friend Kevin Moore surprise him with an offer that changed everything. Soon after, Kevin, who would become Dream Theater's pianist, asked John to join his band. The guitar was then picked up again. John wasn't played to stay up late this time, though. He felt like he belonged when he played. It began as a fun activity that quickly turned into a habit, then a routine, and finally a personal devotion. Petrucci played the guitar for 6 hours a day, studying every note and trying out new techniques while his friends played basketball. He did more than just listen to records by Yngwie Malmsteen, Steve Morse, and Randy Rhoads. He looked at each tone, each choice of words, and each tremor. There was no trauma, family conflict, or major turning point in Petrucci's youth. Instead, it was shaped by something even stronger, obsession. He was crazy about getting things just right, building music, and making the guitar into a new language that could express everything he felt without words. He built his later singing career on that calmness and his inner drive to do the best. The trip didn't start with cheers, but with the soft strum of a guitar in the Long Island bedroom of a boy. It was as quiet as a breath. Beginners in their careers. Before he turned 18, John Petrucci wasn't just a teenager playing around with an electric guitar with wide eyes. The young guitarist knew a lot about skill and the structure of music, but most of all, he had a strong desire to make music that didn't fit into any one genre. Because of that goal, he went to Boston's Berklee College of Music, which is known as the birthplace of great artists. Fate began to draw the first lines of what would become Dream Theater there. While at Berklee, Petrucci saw his old friend Kevin Moore again and met John Mayong, a quiet bassist with the same deep musical understanding as him. He was followed by Mike Portnoy, adding a drummer who was both very precise and very passionate. The trio would go on to form a band called Majesty. The name sounded fancy, but at the time, they were just ambitious first years living in a cold room. In less than a year, though, all three bravely dropped out to pursue music professionally. It wasn't a failure to follow your intellectual interests. They realized that their music needed to be grown in the real world, not just in theory classes. This meant spending sleepless nights in the studio and going on long tours. Soon, Majesty had to change its name because of trademark problems. The idea for Dream Theater came from the movie theater that Portnoy's father owned. They put out their first record, When Dream and Day Unite, in 1989 with vocalist Charlie DeMonicky. Although the record didn't get a lot of attention, it was a quiet statement. When Dream Theater was done, Petrucci moved into a stage where no one could stop him. The early days were not easy at all. Record companies didn't pay attention to them. They had money problems, and they had to fight to keep their sound in a market that was already full of glam metal and grunge. But Petrucci, who was very determined, never gave up. To make everyone happy, he wouldn't change the core of their songs. He instead wrote 10 to 15-minute songs with strange time signatures, classical harmonies, and guitar skills that needed to be played with great accuracy. He wasn't just the guitarist, which was surprising. He was the technical mind behind the band. He planned the frameworks of the songs, set the tone, and wrote the harmony. One who decided the whole artistic direction of the band. When he was in his 20s, John Petrucci wasn't just a good musician. He was a musical architect who was already building his kingdom. Actually, Dream Theater was just getting started with that dream. Dream Theater worked out well. 3 years after putting out their almost forgotten first record, When Dream and Day Unite, Dream Theater came back with a new lineup in 1992. Charlie DeMonicky was replaced by Canadian singer James LeBrie. When that happened, everything changed. There were pictures and words. A fatal step forward. It was a surprise when Pull Me Under, a nearly 9-minute track with complicated time signatures, no traditional chorus, and music that wasn't made for radio, became a hit. It went straight to the top of MTV's charts and made Dream Theater famous as a progressive metal band, going from being an obscure band. Unfortunately for John Petrucci, this wasn't a lucky break. It took almost a decade of planning, constant practice, structural musical thinking, and a willful rejection of popular trends to make it happen. From the start, Petrucci set his own standard for art, music that should make you think and feel. It was this philosophy that made Dream Theater what they were. You could tell who the band was from just a few bars. From 1992 to 1999, a lot happened. In 1994, Awake added a darker, heavier, and more technical edge, showing that the band was ready to move beyond patterns. Still, that's when cracks inside started to show. Kevin Moore, who was a childhood friend and the original pianist, quit because he didn't agree with the style. Even though Petrucci didn't say anything in public, fans knew. It wasn't just a loss at work. It was a wound to them. But instead of falling apart, Dream Theater went through their most exciting creative period while Petrucci was in charge. It is now thought that Metropolis Part 2, Scenes from a Memory, 1999, is the best modern progressive metal album ever made. It was more than just a record. It was an issue. A sad story about reincarnation told through music and words over the course of 77 minutes. Most of the songs were co-written by Petrucci, who also wrote the musical screenplay and organized everything, from the beginning and ending to the climax and conclusion, making it sound like a spiritual movie. He didn't just play guitar. He also planned the story's full emotional landscape. As each record went on, Dream Theater made music that was more complex and deep. In 2002, 6 Degrees of Inner Turbulence had a 40-minute title track with an epic and philosophical tone that talked about different mental illnesses. 2003's Train of Thought was a big step toward heavier metal that went straight for raw emotion. In 2005, Octavarium was a sound drama about cycles. Includes a 24-minute title track that is based on the idea of the creative circle, in which the start and end are both the same. From machine gun alternate picking to solos made to sound like dramatic melodies, they all had Petrucci's mark on them. But what was most important was his structured mind. It's not like Petrucci wrote random ideas. He made musical systems with many layers, where each section served a purpose, each chord was a story knot, and each solo was a conversation. Nothing too much or too little. Fans were shocked when Mike Portnoy quit Dream Theater in 2010, but John Petrucci not only kept the band together, he also became the lead director, which was the start of a dramatic turn of events. November 11, 2011. Besides working with mixer Richard Sitchie, he learned how to run the studio and handle the technical staff. Dream Theater did not have Portnoy for the first time, but they still had their own sound. It wasn't said out loud. The center, or core, was Petrucci. Later records, like 2016's The Astonishing, a rock opera that's over 2 hours long, showed how ambitious he was. It caused a lot of disagreement, but it showed that Petrucci would always try new things and be brave enough to make things that other people thought were too much. The 2019 album Distance Over Time and the 2021 album A View from the Top of the World proved that Dream Theater didn't need to soften in order to stay alive. All they had to do was be themselves. Petrucci was one of the first people to build a personal brand that went beyond music. The Ernie Ball Music Man designed John Petrucci Majesty signature guitar is a mark of very high quality. It's amazing how well the Petrucci plugin by Neural DSP copies his tone. A lot of people follow and copy his seminars, instructional books, and gear setups. Most importantly, Petrucci never sought fame. Even though he was successful, he wasn't going to become a rock star. There won't be any media stunts, formulaic music videos, or sound bits that get people's attention. He only acts with his eyes fixed on the stage, with a shaking finger on the strings, and lets the music speak for itself. Dream Theater's fame may belong to the whole band, if it has to be a person. John Petrucci, on the other hand, is the professional soul, the structural heart, and the direction of it all. Projects outside of Dream Theater. John Petrucci has spent almost all of his life working with Dream Theater, but he has never been one to be limited. His view on music is not a box. Each creative branch can lead to a different road in this three-dimensional coordinate system. This never-ending interest is what has taken him on many side trips and into musical projects that have given him freedom, breathing room, and the chance to be himself in a different way. Liquid Tension Experiment, LTE, was formed by Petrucci, Mike Portnoy, drums, Jordan Rudess, keyboards, and Tony Levin, bass, who was known for his work with King Crimson and Peter Gabriel. They did this during a break between Dream Theater records in 1998. LTE, on the other hand, wasn't a normal band. There were no lyrics, no traditional song structures, and no worry for the market, so it was a real musical laboratory. It was a clean world. At this point, Petrucci stopped looking like a strict director and started acting like a sound researcher, trying out fusion jazz, progressive instrumental, electronic, and even modern classical music as styles. Every track, like Acid Rain, was like a surreal picture, with each note being like a photon crashing into something in space. What made it stand out? In the studio, everything was played live. There are no overdubs or fixes made after the fact. All of the pieces were like jumping without a net. After being apart for more than 20 years, LTE came back with the high-energy record LTE-3 in 2021. It was the first time Petrucci, Portnoy, and Rudess had worked together since Portnoy left Dream Theater in 2010. Fans were shocked when they got back together. They didn't even have to say a word. They just played, and everyone knew what they meant. There are no haters of real music. Petrucci released his first solo record, Suspended Animation, in 2005. It was an all-instrumental project that showed a very different side of him than the Dream Theater member. Here, he wasn't limited by the dynamics of the band and didn't have to balance skill and story. He played what was in his heart, a little blues, a lot of shred, a movie-like vibe, but every note had a life to it. 15 years later, in 2020, during the COVID-19 pandemic, Petrucci surprised everyone by releasing his second solo record, Terminal Velocity. When I saw Mike Portnoy again after 10 years, it made me feel sad. Not a big news release or flashy advertising campaign, just a simple post on social media. That drummer had to understand me without me having to say a word. It seemed like they had never been apart when Portnoy came in quietly and played. Terminal Velocity wasn't just a solo record. It was a message of peace and friendship, using music as a way to bring people back together after a breakup. Petrucci has been a leader in building an integrated personal music brand in addition to playing. The John Petrucci signature guitar line, especially the Majesty, was made with the help of Ernie Ball Music Man. It's thought to be one of the most modern, accurate, and comfortable guitars ever made. He created the Petrucci plugin with Neural DSP, which is an amazingly exact copy of his whole tone rig, including the preamps, EQ, chorus, phaser, and delay. In the area of teaching, he put out the famous instructional video Rock Discipline, which has helped millions of guitarists around the world. Petrucci cares about every little thing. Everything has to go through his careful hands, from a single pick to an EQ band to a gain level. He doesn't want his name on something to make money. He wants it to represent the kind of music he likes, classic and unyielding. When Petrucci works on things other than Dream Theater, he shows more than just professional skill. He shows the man. A singer who always wants to learn more, isn't afraid to walk alone, doesn't mind conflict, and always keeps a space for their own creativity. Not as an escape, but as a place to rest, heal, and come back to Dream Theater more complete and unique than ever. Personal life. John Petrucci is very precise on stage, has perfect skill, is very calm, and has eyes that seem to see through everything. When the strings stop playing and the amps turn off, though, he's a whole different person. Not complicated, but very emotional and thought out. Renaissance is the guitarist for the all-female heavy metal band Mean Streak and is married to Petrucci. They met when they were both young artists just starting out. They've been together for decades, even though most artist weddings only last as long as a tour. Harmony between two people who know that sometimes the best love is the one that lets the other be fully themselves. There are no scandals, loud noises, or public shows. Together, they have 3 kids, and Petrucci has always kept her home life separate from her public life. He talks about his kids a lot in conversations. He doesn't post pictures of his family online, bring them to award shows, or use them as props to improve his public image. Family is what stops his heart from going out, even though music is the light. Not what most people expect. Besides music, Petrucci is totally obsessed with working out. His tight diet and daily workouts are important to him because he thinks that being physically healthy is the key to staying creative. A lot of his fans are shocked by his muscle physique, which makes him stand out in the rock world where people are often thin and worn out. Not for Petrucci, though. This keeps the mind from falling apart. During a rare interview, he said that Petrucci is a man of purpose. There are times when he drinks at work, stays up late to play video games, and brings his laptop into the practice room. Every hour of his day is planned out like an Excel sheet. It sounds technical, but it's what keeps him grounded in a field where chaos is the norm. Despite not being cold, people who know Petrucci well say that he is friendly, polite, and surprisingly humble. People call him a guitar god, but he doesn't like it when fans treat him like an idol, and he often turns down teaching offers when he doesn't think he can give something important. Creating music is an honor for him, not a luxury. And the thought that there's never enough time to do everything that he needs to do stresses him out. Creator, artist, father, and husband. Even so, he does it anyway, softly and without saying anything. The tough appearance hides a heart that is strong because of discipline, rooted in love, and filled with the burning belief that an artist's life doesn't have to be loud to be great. There are times when complete, unwavering, and whole devotion talks loudest in silence. Controversies and shadows. John Petrucci's technique isn't the only thing that makes people respect and hesitate when they hear his name. It's completely under his power. Rhythm, song structure, interview answers, and even himself are all under his control. Petrucci thought that art wasn't a place to show how you feel, cry, or carry your feelings. He is the cold engineer making musical blueprints that leave no room for mistake, because art is architecture. But it was this stiffness that caused cracks to start to appear. Mike Portnoy suddenly quit Dream Theater in 2010, and Petrucci didn't say much about it. Portnoy had been a friend, co-founder, and singing partner for over 20 years. He made a short speech for work. There are no complaints or claims, although it came as a surprise to longtime fans. He was more than just the drummer, Portnoy. In terms of art, he was the only one who could compete with Petrucci. The disorganized partner that Petrucci needed to keep his world in balance. Even though Dream Theater didn't fall apart after Portnoy, something did. Less loud. The records that came after were clean, technical, and carefully put together, but they didn't seem to have the emotional tension that made the band soar in the first place. A lot of Dream Theater fans thought Petrucci had made the band perfect, but they didn't want to say it out loud because they thought records like Scenes from a Memory and Train of Thought lacked the wild energy that made them great. Not even an inch of drifting was allowed by him, as he kept the ship on course. A short comment made during an interview in Europe many years later caused more trouble. What did he say about politics? I like Trump, he answered. He should get a chance, in my opinion. It wasn't difficult. It wasn't advertising, it was just my view. But it was enough for the progressive community to turn their backs on them. This group is usually open-minded and leans left. They thought of Petrucci as a smart person and a musician who could build difficult ideas into music. They now saw him as rigid, dangerous, and a genius who had lost his way. Petrucci did not answer or say sorry. He didn't stop making songs. There seemed to be an unseen glass wall between him and the public after that, though. He was no longer the perfect hero. He was a person who could make decisions that made other people sad. People in Dream Theater don't think of Petrucci as being easy to get along with. He is very exact, works very quickly, and is a perfectionist. Others have felt trapped because of this, though. Despite going through thorough auditions, rumors say that even newly chosen members are under a lot of pressure to live up to standards. Every time you record something, it's a test. Every tour tests how stable you are. Petrucci never gets angry, but the calm, calculated look in his eyes makes it impossible to be careless. There is power in control, but there is also darkness in being rigid. We all know that long periods of silence can be louder than any statement. People both respect and avoid John Petrucci because of this. People look up to him because he takes art seriously in a way that not many people do. They keep their distance from him because he doesn't seem to need anyone and doesn't let anyone really get to him. And it might be just that. It is Petrucci's coldness, his unwavering discipline, and his unwillingness to give and that make him such a unique figure. His choice to be quiet is a statement against the norm in a world where artists need to be good at telling stories. That silence is stronger than the heaviest downstroke he has ever played. John Petrucci is in his 50s now, but he still looks like an athlete. His long, salt and pepper hair flows past his shoulders, and he has a sharp gaze that matches the alternate picking skills he's developed over the past 30 years. Many of Petrucci's peers started to take a step back or rely on past successes in 2024. But Petrucci started a bold new beginning by reuniting with Mike Portnoy, a longtime bandmate who hadn't been in Dream Theater for over a decade. There was no big reveal or dramatic story of foes becoming friends. There was just music, once again repairing a broken thread. The outcome was important. It's called Parasomnia. Parasomnia, Dream Theater's 16th studio album, came out on February 7th, 2025. It was a bold statement that guys over 50 could still make music that was as intense, complex, and risky as it was when they were younger. As lead composer and producer, Petrucci worked with Portnoy, LeBrie, Myung, and Rudis to make an album that explored the chaos of the mind, including fears, sleep disorders, and memories that are torn between dream and reality. It was more than just music, it was a trip inside. Dream Theater once again told everyone that they are not here to make people feel nostalgic. Historians are still writing it. Additionally, in 2025, Petrucci kept growing his personal impact beyond just being a musician. Some of the best guitarists in the world, including Tosin Abasi, Guthrie Govan, Chris Broderick, and most importantly, Mike Portnoy, who was there as an honorary guest for the first time, came to the annual Guitar Universe 5.0 event at Hilton Lake in Las Vegas. It was more than just a class. Petrucci made a small world for guitar fans to sink their teeth into the craft, art, and commitment of the instrument. In terms of leaving a memory, Petrucci didn't start a trend. It was someone who kept a routine. It's common for guitar players to follow trends, slash today, dress like a gentleman tomorrow, and make TikTok videos the next day. But Petrucci stuck to a theory. Music must be a mix between thought and feeling, high-level technique and personal stories, as well as logical framework in the heart of the artist. That's why he became an inspiration for many guitarists, from young players who are coming back to rock to famous artists like Tosin Abasi, Mark Holcomb, and Misha Mansour, who all use him as a guide for how to play the guitar today. Guitar Player and Guitar World have both named him the most influential guitarist of his age more than once. He is also consistently ranked as one of the best guitarists of all time, right up there with Steve Vai, Joe Satriani, and Alan Holdsworth. But what's maybe even more important is the respect he gets from people in the business. There's no need for Petrucci to have the biggest stage, the longest solos, or material that goes viral. People know the bar has been raised when he picks up a guitar. It's interesting that Petrucci has never tried to become famous. He has never written an autobiography, made a video about himself, or used the media to make himself look good. As long as he keeps working, playing, and getting better at the craft he started when he was 12 years old and chose to practice for 6 hours a day in his small bedroom, he is happy. Could be that's what makes his impact so special. It isn't defined by awards, praise, or being called a rock star. This music comes from quiet persistence, discipline that can't be seen, and notes that are hard to see but reach deep into the hearts of people who are looking for structure in the middle of inner chaos. John Petrucci is not in the entertainment business. Trends don't apply to him. He moves precisely and never stays still. He is a musical structure. What do you think of the amazing journey John Petrucci has been on? The most memorable part of his work for you? Which Dream Theater song has meant the most to you? Tell us what you think in the space below. Please like and subscribe if you want to keep learning about the lives and legacies of the world's best musicians. Thanks for seeing this. Keep watching the next movie.